Welcome back. We to preview Sunday's Premier League match between Manchester United and Arsenal at Old Trafford. Pascal's obviously a massive game in the race for third position. Start of Arsenal last time out, been in good form but lost to Swansea very disappointingly.
Yeah, Monday night was a disappointing game, wasn't it, for them? I think they went into that game, they've won 9 in the last 10 games, 10 games unbeaten in the league overall, and they certainly heavy favourites going into that. Swansea playing well at the moment, fair play to them, but for Arsenal not to score at home and to lose the way they did late on, very, very disappointing for the supporters. And I mean, you look at the way the goal went in. Certainly, it was certainly avoidable from an Arsenal point of view. They could have cleared it earlier, and then to let go Mies, have the header that he did. And I think Ospina did as well as he could. A lot. I mean, in real time, it did sort of look like the ball hadn't gone over, and you're certainly glad that the technology was there because it showed that it was about sort of an inch over the line. And you wonder if the technology hadn't been there, if the linesman would have given it for sure. But now the technology's there, there's no doubt in it. The Arsenal players, they certainly questioned the decision, but there's no way you can question it. The technology's there, and it said the ball was over. And Swansea, fair play to them. They sort of restricted Arsenal. Arsenal certainly the better team. Fabianski had a lot of saves to make. Returning to the Emirates like he was, it was a big game for him, and he certainly showed up. And I think he obviously made a point to the Arsenal fans and the club as well. This is the sort of performance I can do, and you maybe shouldn't have let me go, but. Arsenal had their chances on another day. They might have scored 2 or 3 goals in that game. There was that one moment in the second half where I think Sanchez and Walcott both had a chance. Very, very quickly after one another, and on another day, they stick that in, but didn't quite go their way. They're still in with a decent chance of finishing second in the table, but they're now less likely to finish above City. And like you said, this is a big game because now they're certainly not guaranteed to finish third. United pushing just behind them in fourth, so it's a big game for them, but. They'll certainly want to bounce back after that Swansea defeat. They
will want to bounce back. You mentioned we're on the table, sitting 3 points off City. Obviously, they do have the game in hand, but got a 8 worse goal difference. So that's a big ask to turn around. City obviously go to Swansea on the Saturday, so it'll be interesting if City maybe get beat there. Obviously, Arsenal will be looking at that game. And obviously after this one, they go to United, host Sunderland the midweek game next week. So that'll be interesting. Obviously Sunderland battling for their lives at the bottom. Last game of the season, West Brom at home, which is quite a nice game. West Brom have been decent away from home. So beat Manchester United a couple of weeks ago. So obviously good games, but you'd expect Arsenal to win Sunderland at home, West Brom at home. So it's obviously massive for them. And if they get beat here, obviously United will go above them. But like I say, you would fancy them to win the last 2 games. And it's been a good season for Arsenal, but. Talk about where they finished last season, 79 points. They've got 70 this season, so they have to win the last 3 to match last season's total. And talk about how good they've been. That showed how sort of poor they were during spells of the season, dropping points. And you always want progression. Obviously, if they win the FA Cup and finish second, that's a really good season. But if they win the FA Cup, maybe finish third, that's okay. If they don't win the FA Cup and finish third, that's probably quite poor, isn't it? So it'd be interesting to see what happens, and it's going to be a big summer.
Certainly. Well, you wonder if their spending this summer will depend on how this sort of last month goes. If they get that second spot. Retain the FA Cup. Like you say, it probably could be considered a decent season. They'll be disappointed to go out in Europe the way they did, obviously, to Monaco. That's probably the biggest blow for them. When you look at the squad that Chelsea have and how dominant they've sort of been throughout the season in the Premier League, it's hard to say that Arsenal could have really challenged them this season. But yeah, the European thing, they got the great draw, drawing Monaco, French club who, they're not really in the French title race, sort of behind PSG in the table. So. And in the French league as well, which is a considerably weaker league than sort of Italy, Spain, Germany and England. So to go out the way they did, that was a very disappointing in Europe. But in the league, it's been decent of late. Obviously the Swansea game is disappointing, but if they win the FA Cup, depending on how it goes, say for I think it's quite a big month for Olivier Giroud. In that Swansea game, he had one of his worst games in a while. On the whole this season he's been pretty good. His goal to game ratio in the league is decent, but there's a lot of talk. Is he good enough to sort of lead Arsenal to a title charge? You do wonder, but then if they sign sort of say a bigger name striker, I don't know, someone like say Benzema's quality or like a Cavani, someone like that, does that then relegate Giroud to the bench? And I think if that happened, that would be quite harsh on Giroud, because I think in the Premier League he's certainly a very good striker, and he's in that weird place of is he good enough to win the title for them, but he's not quite bad enough to necessarily be sort of a regular bench warmer. So it'd be interesting for that. Certainly elsewhere, a defensive midfielders what they've lacked for a good 2-3 years now, and elsewhere maybe a full-back here or there. I think the centre-back partnership Mertesacker and Koscielny is quite strong, and you've got the youngsters coming through. Chambers, is he a centre-back or a right-back? And obviously the goalkeeper, there's a lot of talk regarding say Petr Cech, Iker Casillas, sort of 2 veterans who could you'd certainly say they're better than David Ospina, but I think Ospina he certainly is he's got the number 1 spot ahead of Szczesny, and I think he's had a decent campaign, but they'll certainly spending money somewhere this summer, but not quite sure where. Certainly, I think a forward and a centre midfielder are probably the 2 biggest needs at the moment for them.
You mentioned Giroud. I think interestingly he came off in that Swansea game when Arsenal were searching for a goal, so that maybe says a lot. Put Walcott through the middle, and it was strange because obviously Swansea were playing so deep that Walcott's pace never really he had that chance. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't one of the games where you're playing away from home and the pace can open up teams. So it was interesting. But Arsenal obviously, like I say, been in good form. Moving on to United, last time out against Palace, I think it was a massive game. Having lost their last three, not even scoring. Losing to Chelsea, okay, difficult game. Everton away, possibly, but then to lose at home to West Brom was obviously massive. And to go to Palace, I mean, you mentioned Palace's home form's been very poor this season. They lost 9 at home going into that game. Obviously, that became 10 with United winning. And the game itself was, United started okay. Got the penalty. Scott Dan throwing his arm up, which was, I believe, was a penalty. It was sort of. Can't really do that inside the box, and the penalty incident was interesting. Rooney's missed a couple, Van Persie missed one against West Brom, so they've both been relegated. Mata steps up for the duties and slots it in bottom corner, good penalty. Goalkeeper might have maybe done a little bit better. It wasn't right in the corner, but it was still a good penalty. And obviously Palace equalised a little after half time. Jason Puncham free kick, Davy Blind. Terrible what he's doing in the wall. He's sort of thrown his head out the way, which is poor to see. From a player at this level, at this important stage of the game. But then coming back, good character again. Character's been decent this season. Fellaini getting the goal. Falcao probably does push Delaney into his goalkeeper, and Fellaini nods home. But fairness to Fellaini, he's come up with some big goals recently. So he's obviously still doing it. And like I mentioned, where they're obviously in the table now, 6 points above 5th place Liverpool, you'd fancy obviously the goal difference is 14 better as well. So unless there's an incredible run of results, Liverpool go to Stoke last game of the season as well. So that's a difficult game, and you fancy they'll finish comfortably there. And obviously the race for third's important. And to get back to winning ways last time out is massive, because if they'd have drawn and then gone into this game, and it soon becomes maybe 4 or 5 games without a win, that's a poor into the season. But top 4 and get back to Champions League massively important.
Certainly is, and I think that result, when Swansea beat Arsenal, that would have given United a huge boost, because the difference between finishing 4th and 3rd can be massive for them. If you finish 3rd, it means you're straight into the group stages of the Champions League. You finish 4th, you have to go through the qualifying round, and in the past, depending on which sort of teams you draw, it can be quite tough to get into those group stages, depending, because European teams, you go to a hostile environment, and a European team will come to you and they won't make it easy for you to win. And say if you only win by 1 or 2 goals at home, then you have to go to a tough place. It's certainly not the easiest thing. And I think you look at the table, they're 2 points behind Arsenal. I mean, if they win this game, they go above Arsenal. But then you did mention that Arsenal do have a game in hand, so it's still unlikely that they'll be able to finish above Arsenal, in 3rd place. But if they can do and avoid that qualifying stage, that'd be massive for them. And certainly, we talked about who Arsenal are going to sign this summer, but I think United will be certainly interested. They've already done that one bit of business getting Depay, and I'm not too sure how good he'll be. He's been playing in the Dutch league, very promising youngster, but be interesting to see who else they sign. And big summer ahead, who they sign, but also who they let go. Is Falcao going to stay and all that sort of stuff. So big summer ahead, but I think the biggest news for them is that Champions League football does now look secure.
Yeah, and that will help them in the transfer market. Obviously, last summer they managed to sign Di Maria and Falcao, not being in the Champions League, but being back in it's obviously massive. You mentioned Depay. I think it's a really good. Van Gaal mentioned he had to do it because he was almost going to PSG, but sort of a last-minute phone call changed Depay's mind. And really good, young, exciting player, 21 years of age, 28 goals this season, 22 in the league. I think PSV have 14. Obviously, won the Dutch title, 14 points clear or something ludicrous. They've been scored a free kick at the weekend, Cristiano Ronaldo-esque. It was very good. He's been compared to him. It's difficult to make comparisons to players when they're young, but you listen to him talk. He's got good English. He's got good. He looks like he's a bit bit arrogant, but you need that arrogancy to be a good player, don't you? All the best players have that sort of bit about them, and coming into the team, it'll be interesting to see where he plays. He said he likes to play the left of a front three, so it'll be interesting to see whether Van Gaal is looking at doing that next season. Obviously Van Gaal knows him well from the Dutch team at the World Cup, knows Davy Blind, knows Van Persie, knows the coaches, so it'll be interesting, be an easy settling process for him. So it's obviously great news for United fans to get some deals done early, and if they can get some more done before maybe, looking at the Copa America and tournaments like that, if they can get some deals done early, then be good, and they can hopefully push for the title next season.
So looking back to this game, United, they've been one of the best teams at home this season. They've got as many wins as Chelsea, 14, as many as anyone else in the league this year. So they have been great at home. Away form's not been so good, so they'll be glad to sort of get back to Old Trafford. What's your score prediction?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Like you said, the race for the top 4 is obviously is done now, but the race for 3rd is very much open. If United can win this, like you mentioned, they do go above them against Arsenal, unbeaten in 7 home league meetings with Arsenal. So it's obviously impressive, but they did lose to Arsenal in the Cup, didn't they? A few months ago, Arsenal got the win. Danny Welbeck going back to his old club and scoring. So it's a difficult one to call. You can make a case of both, but I'm just going to sit on the fence for this. So I'm actually going to go 1-1.
1-1, yeah, like you say, it is a very tough game to call. I think out of the two sides, if it is a draw, I think Arsenal will probably be happier with that, because they know, then they're in pole position to finish 3rd. And I think they probably will go there and probably take a draw. I'm actually going to completely agree and say 1-1 as well. So both fancy this game to finish 1-1. Thanks for watching.